Welcome to the Hembury Books Podcast. Today, our guest is Bev Ryan. Based in Brisbane, Bev works with non-fiction authors as a certified non-fiction book coach, helping them to plan a book well before diving into the writing process. She also works as a book production manager with independent authors, usually women in business, bringing their books to print after they have completed their manuscripts. Bev's happy place definitely sits at the intersection of the power of publishing to grow a business and the author's personal growth in the process. Bev, thanks a lot for coming on to the Hembury Books Podcast.
Oh, it's great to be here, Jess. It's really been good to see you developing your business too.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. One and a bit years in. How many years have you been in the game, and how did you originally get into book coaching?
Well, it's kind of been a long path, and I think most of our career paths go back a fair way. But I guess I got into self-publishing myself as a magazine publisher back in the late 90s when it was not really a thing to do, and I just sort of bit the, instead of waiting for somebody else to publish things I thought were worth publishing, I thought I can do it myself, which is really, I guess, the essence of the people I work with now and the people you work with now. They're brave enough to say, hey, I can do this myself, and I'm all for doing it yourself.
Yes.
For lots of reasons, yeah.
Yes, so, taking matters into your own hands. Yeah,
definitely. So that sort of morphed out of magazines around the GFC time into the early stages when people were realising that there was the digital capacity to put books online themselves. And then through that, I then done some training in the last few years, about 3 years ago. I did the book coaching certification training. So, that was excellent program. And
is that run out of is that with Jenny Nash?
Yes.
Is that an excellent and worthwhile program?
Yeah, it's an incredibly good program, and she's always adding to the depth and quality of it. I know it's gone up in price this year, but it's still it's an incredibly robust program. Excuse me. And the part of what I love about it is there's a really invigorating community of book coaches around the world, and we've all come into it with pretty interesting career backgrounds. So we're all bringing this wealth and variety to the profession, and we all bounce off each other, and so it's a great community and a great program. Yeah.
And what is a book coach, and how do you work with authors?
Yeah, and I think in Australia, the term book coach is still relatively new, unless you're kind of in the industry or you've been trying to find out how to do this thing. So book coaches will work with authors right from the stage where they've got an idea or an inkling or a desire. Like, I really want to write a book, and I don't know how. That's usually where a book coach good place to find a book coach, because working with a coach, they're asking you the right questions, as any coach will do in any industry. It doesn't matter. The questions they've got to be good questions, but the coach will then go through your responses with you and challenge some of your ideas, just to help the writer dig deeper and maybe turn what they thought was a good idea into something better, or realize that good idea is not actually going to work for what they actually want their book to do for them. So a book coach goes from the idea stage right through to when the manuscript's finished. I tend to work with people from the idea stage to full out book plan, and then they're comfortable to write, because then they know what they're doing and they've got the whole book formulated on paper in their minds, or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. They know where they're going, and then they don't tear up that first manuscript that supposedly is always crappy. But I disagree with that. I don't think the first manuscript does have to be crappy and torn up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. Who is it that said a shitty first draft? Can't think of it now. It's gone. But even when you have a book plan, your first draft will still probably be pretty shitty, but at least the structure's good. You can then go and make it better, make it shine. But I know what you do, what I do, sometimes we don't see manuscripts until they're completed. So an author will say, look, I've written my book here, please edit it. And they haven't worked with anybody, they haven't had any advice, they've kind of flown solo. And the editor is like, oh my God, this could have been so much better. That's the really sad thing I think about self-publishing, is when things could have been so much better. Because what we're aiming for, what you're aiming for, what I'm aiming for our clients is professional books that sit side by side with the big guys and look just as good, read just as well. Yeah.
And what are some of the common challenges that your clients face? And you are exclusively working with non-fiction clients, business?
Yeah, most of my clients are business owners or professionals of some kind. So what was the question again? What do I specialize in? Is that
what are some of the
challenges?
Yeah.
Well, again, just keeping that self-publishing space in mind. I think in the early days, it's just the confidence to do it. The confidence that the author might be thinking, well, what can I add to this? Like you might go to a bookshop or a library or whatever online, and there's 20 books about leadership. There's probably hundreds of books about leadership. So an author might think, well, there's nothing left for me to say in that space. So that's really where one of the big things a book coach can do with an author is help them figure out where their space is in that market. And they may never use the word leadership, but it can be a really good book that fits right within that genre. So that's one of the big challenges. And then planning the books, it's, if somebody's an ideas person, planning's really fun. You just throw around ideas and and then they get to the hard slog, which is the writing. That's where a lot of people fall off the perch, is the writing, because it's it's a big job. It's not an easy thing. Which brings up the whole conversation about AI, which we might get to in this conversation. But I think that writing stage is where a lot of people get challenged, because most people I work with are quite busy, and
they're business owners.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you can have the best intentions to, it's a bit like going to the gym, 4 times a week. You have the best intentions, and but I really encourage people to regard writing a book as getting a degree. You've got to do the work. And because the end result, sometimes a book can do more for you than a degree would do.
Yes.
If you write the right book, and
yes, it will bear fruit, for the rest of your life, potentially enrich your life as well.
Yeah, definitely.
The kind of people you get to meet as a result, and who get to meet you and read your work, is just amazing. Well, what are your thoughts on using AI to aid with the writing and researching of books?
Yeah, I think that's the place for AI, as far as I can see from I haven't dived right in. I'm aware of it. I use it to generate some ideas for things, but I haven't used it at this point to write a book or anything like that. It's so important to me that the author still writes the book. AI is there for research or generating ideas, but the author has to keep in mind that those ideas have come from somewhere else or somebody else. They're just being pulled out of the ether. So the critical end result has to be the author's intellectual property, intellectual prowess. So it's a tool.
It's just soulless. And really, you have to think about what is the definition of an author.
Yes, well, that's right.
Yes. Apart from some of the psychological barriers and time barriers, if it comes to the structuring of the book, like, there's the saggy middle, and it's really hard to push through that. Is there another aspect of the writing of the book that is commonly a challenge for your authors?
I think stepping into the shoes of the reader is, it's just so important that the author has to always keep in mind that's critical to the planning process. Like, who's my reader? Why would they even pick this book up? What are they looking for from this book? And I'm sure, you and I and everybody's probably got books where we kind of saw the front cover, we picked it up, looked at the back cover, and we just felt like, oh my God, that book's for me. That's what you're aiming for. And the only way you can produce a book like that is to really know the reader, and keep them in mind as you write. And just as you're writing, there's got to be a freshness to it. There's got to be a flow through it. There's got to be an understanding of where the reader is at all stages in that process. What state of mind are they in when they find your book, which is usually some kind of distress or whatever problem. and how do I take them gently through a path so that at the end they think, oh my God, that was really valuable. And now I can go and do something.
Yeah. I like to say that I read my way out of problems.
Yeah.
I will just relentlessly until I can, like to say with drinking, like I read a lot of memoirs about sobriety. Never really occurred to me. I just found them interesting and stuff. But then I read Sober on a Drunk Planet and I just went, I'm done. And I also did it with smoking because I quit smoking before my kids were born. But, financials, getting on top of that, running a business. I'm just obsessed with business books at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's just, they're life-changing. A good book is life-changing.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And we've all got a couple of those that have hopefully we have. Yeah, they definitely are. And I guess
I read endless books when I became a mum about parenting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you've got to find the one that, and that's, I guess that's also important to remember that your book, the book you're writing as an author, the book you're writing is going to gel with some people, but it won't gel with everybody. And the only way you can really produce a book that's got some heart to it is if you rely on yourself to be there on the page, because somebody's got to really connect with you. Like you said about the sobriety books, one of them obviously just clicked.
Yeah. Yeah, they just clicked. I've always enjoyed the addiction genre. I think because I have an addictive personality and it allows me to safely explore the life I could have had.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I've always just enjoyed it. I mean, it's the same with travel. Like for a long time, I was obsessed with travel book. I mean, I've written 2 travel books as well because it was the life I wanted to lead. And I also earlier, I read endless biographies of authors because I wanted to be an author. Never thought I could be.
Right.
You sort of go through, I don't know, with your reading, do you have the eras of reading?
Yeah, I'll read, like when I first started, when I first got into what I'm doing now, actually the pivotal book back then, and I know I've said this in interviews before, people get really tired of it, but I found Barbara Sher's book. She's an American author, and her book that I found was I Could Do Anything If I Only Knew What It Was. So, at that stage I was kind of lost. I was in my mid-40s, had 4 kids, really, really wanted to do something for myself. I wanted to be a woman in business, had no idea how to do it or what I could do. So I did read a lot then. And when I found the one book, I just did the exercises, work, and that book has led me to where I am now. So
amazing.
But I think you've also got to know when to stop devouring other people's ideas and become confident in your own. Like, okay, I know enough now.
Yeah,
I could do this. Yeah,
absolutely. I also had a massive period on how to self-publish books, and I've read all the great authors, which I never knew I was going to set up a hybrid publishing company, but perhaps on some level, it was there. Yeah. And now going to ask them to come on my podcast, I'm like, oh, this is amazing.
Yes. Yeah. So and that's one of the great things about podcasts, about what you're doing, is it just opens up doors, isn't it? People very rarely will say no.
Well, yes. And because it's not just me saying I'd love to talk to you and then see what's the value for them. So it is a really good way to network with people. Okay, your coaching style as a book coach, are you more the carrot or the stick? Because what's effective?
What's effective? I know I'm much more a carrot. I started out as a high school teacher and teaching English and geography. So that's my professional background. But even then, I mean, that I started in the 70s, believe it or not. It's probably very believable. But even then, I was always more the carrot. And what I loved about teaching was the individual, connecting with the individual students, just taking them through a process where they learned something and they felt really proud of themselves, whatever it was. What I didn't like then was that discipline, the stick. I wasn't a stick person as a teacher, and I never will be. And as a coach, and again, it doesn't matter what you're coaching, you've really got to know what your natural method is, because you've got to be comfortable coaching people with a method that you are, that where you can do your best work, and you'll attract the people that want that. So if somebody wants a coach that's going to push them really hard because they want to get their book out in 30 days. I mean, I could do that as long as they show up and do the work. I'm not the kind of coach that wants to work with anybody who's not willing to do the work. You know, you pay me to do what I do, you show up and do your part. And if that doesn't happen, then I don't think it's ever happened, but I don't lock people into contracts. Some coaches will say, well, you've got to work with me for 3 months or 6 months, whatever. And I don't do that because everyone's
different and
and
responsible for what they need.
That's right. And if in that situation, so I might say, well, we'll work together month by month, pay me month by month. And if you or I get to a point where this is not working, that's it. We'll just move on. It's easy.
Yeah, you're both adults, and the accountability though that you provide is invaluable for authors, isn't it?
Yes.
They know you're waiting for them to complete that chapter or section.
Yes. Yeah, and definitely. Most of us work really well to deadlines. That's why we're really good at going into work and doing a job for somebody else, because there's a reason. We've got a structure, we've got an accountability, we'll get the job done. So that the big change for then, say, working for yourself or writing a book at home by yourself is that external accountability is not there. And some people really struggle with that. So as a coach, I guess that's another aspect of what we do is help people figure out how to create their own accountability, or use their coach as their accountability factor, or find what works for them, because there will be times in their past where they've achieved really important goals, but they may have forgotten how they did that. So dig deep, think, well, what did you do then to make that happen then? What can you do now to help make this happen now? Yeah.
And how long do you typically work with clients? Like, is it around 6 months or 4 months? Or
in the planning stage, usually a few months, 3 or 4 months. Most people have got their book plan, their content planned out within that time frame.
Yeah.
Some people will start the process and things happen and then they come back.
Yeah.
But, the planning, and again, I think it's wrong to think you can plan a book in a week. I mean, you could, I suppose, if you took every day off and just that's all you did for a week. But you've got to let your brain, ruminate and toss ideas around. And, some of our best thinking happens just before we go to sleep. Or
on a walk or in the shower.
Yeah, that's right. So you've got to give yourself time.
Yeah. And what to leave out is just as important as what to put in. I always can't put everything in, or it's just a download of information.
And that's not what the reader's looking for. So it's why it's important to think about them all the time. Yes.
What sort of traits are most necessary for successfully completing a book? And I think you have to have endurance. That would come to mind.
Yeah.
What do you see among your successful authors?
Just really having a clear vision of what they want their book to do for their business. The world that I work in, and probably many of your clients, they've got a business or a service or whatever, and they know clearly. And when they come to coaching, they may not really have that connection really clear. But then again, that's one of the benefits of coaching, is to help people really get crystal clear on, okay, that's the book I need to write now, because that's what I want it to do for my business. I've got somebody who's just about to start with me. Part of the reason she wants to work with a coach is because she's not quite clear on what her business looks like, in the next 6 to 12 months. She's got to make a decision. Okay, well, that's what I want to do for my business. So therefore, then I need to write this book to achieve that goal. So that part's really critical. Once people get clear on that, then that's, they've got a vision, a clear reason to write the book. I think the other things that they struggle with is that time factor. And again, it's just going back to finding ways to maybe give up some things or rearrange some things. I had a client years ago who was a very busy professional woman, married to a farmer, a couple of kids. They lived on the farm. So he was just, 7 days a week. He was busy in some aspect of the farm. So she kind of negotiated with him that, and with the kids, that one weekend a month she would go away and he would step in and just look after the kids. that was the way she got the book done, because it was all like, well, this is a team thing here. If I write this book, it's going to help me grow my business. That's going to fund the family, help fund the family. So yeah, that's how she did it. 1 weekend a month she went away.
Probably for a year.
Yeah, she had actually, the other thing that she created for herself was an external deadline. She coaches in the health profession. Yeah, that's right, the health profession. There was a national conference coming up several months down the track. So she arranged for herself to have a little mini book launch at the national conference. So then she just head down, she made it happen. I produced the book for her and she did it. So that just gave her the time frame, the time structure to get it done and then reason to get it done. And the launch in front of industry peers from all over Australia. So perfect.
That is such a good carrot to have.
Yeah.
I actually, last night, I had a nightmare that it was my book launch and I didn't have the copies ready and I was supposed to have a presentation and I hadn't even thought to do slides and I'd given my parents the wrong time. So they showed up afterwards. It was awful. It was awful. I think on some level, my daughter started school this morning. Maybe I felt unprepared for that or something.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's I always say to clients, like, what date would you like to publish? Is there a special day or something coming up that's significant to the book or the business or, a family's birthday or something? And then, okay, keep that in mind. Keep the end goal in mind.
Yeah. And even if there's no national conference happening or whatever, just create your own event. Create a lunch or on a special day of the year. There's so many special days of the year. I don't know where you find those calendars, but the calendars.
There are so many.
The PR people use, like, this is a day for that, a day for that, day for that. It's just
and tie it in. Now, I am often telling my authors that paper is expensive nowadays, and that a short book is a good book.
Yes.
What are some reasons why you agree with that?
Oh, lots of reasons. Yeah. I'm not sure if we mentioned that, but this year I've decided to really focus in on helping authors write short books. Now, what I mean by short books might be 15 to 30,000 words. And then anytime I talk about it with people who want to write a book, they say, "Oh my God, that sounds great. I could do that." So that's one reason. It sounds doable. It still requires a professional approach. It's not just throw together some ideas off AI. No, don't do that. It's a manageable task for the author. What a short book really does for them as well, it really forces them to hone in on what they want to say. So they can't waffle on and add in extras just because they know something. It doesn't have to be in the book. They've got to get some clarity and some structure and make a really clear point with this book. For the reader, it's like, oh, this is the one thing I need to know. So a short book we focused on one very clear message, not just all about leadership, but it might just be dealing with the imposter syndrome when you become a leader, just something that's really tight. And so also I think the value of short books for the reader is that there's usually a very clear set of steps and it's easy to follow, easy to implement. So they've got to be, there's got to be ideas and actions that are usable and able to be implemented. Otherwise, it's just another book on the shelf.
Yeah. I mean, as I've been reading business books, there've been quite a number of instances where I've been like, I think we're going off topic here. I think this is this padding? So you strip a book back of all its padding, and it's just a really powerful idea.
Yeah, definitely.
It needs to be. I'm also curious, in terms of the industries, because you work so closely with business people, what kind of industries lend themselves well to having that book as a business card? Obviously, leadership and management.
Yeah, I guess the classic one is coaches, consultants, people who help other people through change. But you've thrown me. I'm going to think of how other people have used it. So I've used actually on my website. I've set up a page about short books, and I've used an example of a short book. I had nothing to do with it. I just think it's a really lovely short book by Tess McCabe. Tess is a graphic designer, so she's not providing a well, she's running a very clear service graphic design, but her book is interesting. It's about graphic design. So it's not only, it's really aimed at other graphic designers in many ways. So it's peers, sort of educating peers on how to do their, not so much run their business, but how to do design better. So it's quite a specific book. It's not just for somebody who wants to learn to do graphic design at home, which it could be. I know I'm probably waffling a bit here, but it's an unusual book, but it's clear. But also what it does for Tess is actually really illustrates her design skills because it's beautifully laid out, obviously. Yeah. So this is an example. So it would bring Tess direct business, but it's also educating other people in the industry. And, it, you know, therefore it could open Tess, it could open up opportunities maybe for Tess to teach design or lecture in design, which she may already do, I'm not sure, but you know, it's not just a how-to book.
Yeah. Okay. And you are starting a program with a small group. Can you tell us about what you're doing and why?
Yeah, sure. I think when this this podcast is live, I would have already started, but I run small groups from time to time, so I hadn't done a small group thing for about 2 years. I ran a retreat last year, but that's slightly different. I really like working with small groups of people, and I think what people
4 or 6 or something.
How many?
Like, is it a group of 4 or a group of 6?
Up to 10. So
okay. Yeah.
Between 4 and 10 is 4 or 5 people will be a minimum. And 10, that's I find that really good size because people get heard. You've got access to the coach, and the coach can make sure that everybody in the group at that size is able to, speak and ask questions. So it's really designed to take people from the vague idea of a short book to the point where they've confidently mapped out what's going to go in the book. So all of the decisions they need to make between those 2 points will happen in the group process or individual process because they get worksheets and whatever. But I think part of the value of a group also is the challenging of ideas where the other group sees themselves as readers. I don't know what your thoughts are on writing groups, but I think sometimes in writing groups, which this is not, writing groups, sometimes there might be one person in the group who feels qualified to critique somebody else's writing, which can really quite be devastating because if they're not trained to do it.
I got burnt in a writing group in Myanmar, and I have never returned to a writing group. It was pretty bad. Yeah.
So I think with a coach in a group format like that, part of the understanding right at the start is, guys, if you're giving feedback, you give it feedback as a potential reader. That's it.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's what I really like doing. Group programs for that reason, and usually people within the groups, then they connect with each other and form ongoing relationships and whatever. So.
That is so great. And so they are on a similar timeline towards publishing. Is that how it works?
Yeah, well, the group, when I run a group program like this, at the end of the program, people then would ideally go off and keep writing their books, or they could choose to keep working with me individually if they chose. Is that what you meant by that?
Yeah,
question?
I mean, I guess, of course, yes, they must. I wasn't sure if it goes from the idea stage right through to publication stage. But no, it's the ideas that are forming, get clear on them, and then you can write. Yeah,
it's the planning stage. I know there's a couple of people in Australia who I know, Kelly Irving. Kelly Irving takes people right from the idea right through to publication stage. I think she does some fantastic work with big, not huge groups, but bigger groups.
Yeah. Okay. No, I see. Now, I would just like to know your thoughts on self-publishing and how it's evolved and where you see it going. The opportunities now are really great, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. It's very exciting. Traditional publishing has still got a place, and it's fantastic if you can make it in there. I think hybrid publishers have got a really exciting place in the world as well. And I don't know enough about what you offer. I notice you use the hybrid publisher term.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, because you've added distribution, is that right?
No, it's because, well, all our clients retain their rights and royalties.
Yeah.
So it's a hybrid arrangement in that we do everything for them, but then we don't take any royalties at all.
Right.
And I've chosen hybrid, even though from a technical point of view, people might say, well, you're not sharing royalties. It is still hybrid, and I just don't think things are fixed enough that hybrids has been taken over completely. And it's a great term, and it represents the arrangement to me.
Yeah.
Well,
we do very similar, but I don't use that term. So it's quite interesting, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Do you call it author assist?
Yeah, publishing services. That's probably the term I use, or author services. But in my website it's publishing services. But yeah, self-publishing. I mean, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What I worked in my vast career. I've worked as a career coach as well, and a lot of times I was doing part-time career coaching as a consultant while I was also working with books with clients. And I loved that combination. Actually, it was really really pleasant because it was a mixture each week. But as a career consultant, career coach, I also would say to people, look, don't wait till jobs are advertised. Just do it yourself. Go knock on doors, have coffees.
Yeah.
And it's the same with publishing. I don't advocate anybody stands in line waiting for somebody else to say, oh yeah, okay, I approve you. You can do it. Just
totally
do it yourself.
It may never happen, and that is just so sad. I mean, I do see Hembury Books as getting the manuscripts out of the drawers around Australia and getting them out into the light. And so we have the Hembury Books logo. So for all intents and purposes, if a snooty bookstore owner says, well, who published your book? They can say Hembury Books. So it's wrap around, but we're just not keeping any royalties. And author assist to me just sounds like assisted dying, and I don't like it.
I don't use that too.
No.
I love what you do actually, because for lots of reasons, and exactly what you said, there is still a little snooty thing to do in publishing.
And it also helps to get high profile media interviews as well. If you have, because the ABC will say, Bruce Lowry is published by ABC Books on the 14th of March. So it is important to help authors get around the remaining stigma, but we're just doing it in a different way. Like I like to say, we're like Uber. We have no cars. We own no books. We're like Airbnb. We don't own any property, but our business is publishing books. But there's just no warehouse with books sitting there that are going to be pulped. It's just
that's good.
And distribution, while you're here, I can't, as an author, I have tried to do distribution. I had a distributor, but it wasn't a good arrangement financially, and it wasn't helping my book. So all our authors use Ingram Spark, so they're globally available.
Same.
And until it's a good deal for the author, I just don't see the point. And with, the number of bookstores in Australia has halved in about 4 years to like 1,300 bookstores. So we're kind of digital channels, for me, is the way forward. Where are the opportunities to sell books, whether it's an ebook from your author website or a Shopify store? That to me is where the future is. And if we're to get into distribution, we'd have to start sharing royalties, and I don't want to take authors' royalties because there's nothing left. There'll be nothing.
I'm with you on that. I mean, I looked a year or so ago. I had a chat with Booktopia Publishing Services. But then their world changed dramatically last year. But then you sort of sit back and think, well, what's the benefit to the only benefit I can see for an author is that sort of prestige of my books in a bookstore.
But you can do that with a few strategic bookstores that you love. On consignment. Take the awesome photos.
I noticed, because you've done something like that recently, haven't you? And some of my clients do that. And listening to a webinar last year about book distribution, it was interesting. Somebody she's a book buyer within, I forget where, but anyway, she knew all about the internal mechanisms of book distribution.
Oh, wow.
But most of the books that are sold, or the big sellers for books, she said, were local books at local bookstores. So, maybe books about the best walks in Brisbane, and you sell them in Brisbane bookstores.
Well, I have to. I mean,
There
Holly's a Perth girl, and
Mhm.
Kate Purcell, who we've just published, is a Perth girl, and Dymocks have been amazing to them. At Oz Post are stocking their book. Like,
Yeah.
they're
Mhm.
just awesome. If you come in with a great laminated sign and an amazing cover and
Mhm.
say, Kate sold like 2 books as soon as they put her book in the store. Like,
Yeah. Mhm.
people want it. Oh, they're like, oh, local author, fantastic. And the
Mm.
same Bruce Lowry is a Melbourne Mountains author.
Right.
And the bookstore keep calling him and saying, bring more books in.
Yeah. That's amazing. So there you go.
So there you go.
Local. Mm.
Shifting sands, I think. I mean, I would love to work out how it could be done, but until that piece of the puzzle can be solved,
Mm.
it's not a space to play in, I think. Because it's got to be, this is a business. You know, I want my authors to make back the money that they've invested in publishing their books.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and there's ways to there's ways to sell books online. And I listened to your podcast just recently with the fellow, is he in South America, that sold lots of books?
yeah, David
He uses Spotify. That was really interesting. Yeah.
So Shopify,
that's it. Yes.
Yes, so interesting. I found that really interesting, and that could be game changing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, Bev, thank you so much for coming.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's great to chat about publishing. Awesome.